Welcome to the Coach's Table Podcast, where coaches come to grow personally and professionally through real-world application and online education. What is going on, everybody? Oh, wow, I got to tell you, I am super excited for this episode today because I think you're going to get a lot of knowledge bombs dropped at you. I think you're going to laugh a lot, and I think you're going to find a lot of common ground on where kind of both of us sit, but I think things that people talk about but don't really talk about, if that makes sense to you. But before we introduce our guest, guys, as always, for those of you that are continuing to listen, I appreciate you. If you are watching on YouTube, because the full-length episodes are dropped on YouTube, do us two things. One, subscribe and follow, and then second, leave a comment below and let our guest, who I'll introduce you in a second, know what a great job that he does. That's super important. I'm trying to go on the YouTube channel as well. If you're on Spotify, do us a huge favor. It literally takes 10 seconds of your time to leave a review. And what that review does is show other coaches, other people that there's value here. And that is one thing. If you do get value, share the show. It's pretty simple. If you get educated, if you get entertained, or if you get encouraged by any means, do us a huge favor, share the show. Let us know what a good job that we did, and let us know what you want to see more of, because that helps us as well. So without further ado, I have a super special guest that, man, he's kind of been everywhere. Was a former professional athlete, has been in the collegiate sector from a strength coach standpoint, and now owns his own business, runs his own business, which I think is awesome. And the thing that I really enjoy the most about him and what he does is how he does it with such ease, or at least it appears of ease, but he does such a great job of balancing the work-life balance, making money, more money than a lot of college strength coaches or strength coaches in general make, which I think is extremely important, and the wealth of knowledge that he has. So, John Davis, what's going on?
What's going on, bro? Thanks for having me.
Man, I appreciate you, and thank you for coming on. I'm super excited for this because I think there's just so much that we can unpack and so many different rabbit holes that we can go down. And I think that, if you're listening, I think you're going to get a lot from this. I really, really do. And so let's kind of start. So you were a professional athlete. You played in the CFL for a couple of years. Kind of walk us through how you got there, what that was like, and then, kind of what happened after that.
Yeah, man. So, first off, again, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah.
I always want to do this, bro. So I'm glad we linked up finally.
Yeah.
Finally came together, man. And, it's going to be a good one.
That's right.
So a little bit about me, man, is grew up playing sports my whole life.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of, like all strength coaches is, we all grew up playing sports and everything. And for me, my background is a little bit different, right? Is I come from the perspective of a strength coach now as an athlete who was super gifted growing up, and sports came easy for me, right? And so I'm always that coach who looks at things through a different lens of, some athletes say, "Oh, I had to struggle and overcome adversity, and I had to do certain things," which I did, right? Growing up in certain parts of the neighborhood and that kind of stuff, but always had it a little bit easier than a lot of athletes, just being naturally talented and naturally gifted, right? So played baseball, basketball, football growing up. As a young kid, I was always like number one draft pick of every league I played in, all that kind of stuff. But, dealt with struggles because I was always drafted to the sorry team, right? It's like you're number one draft pick, you kind of drafted to the sorry team growing up and everything, right? So it's like, man, I got to play on a team that's not any good. But high school, went to James Logan High School in Union City. For those that don't know, it's like a rival, one of the biggest schools in the Bay Area, in California, in the Bay Area, right? Is played against Maurice Jones-Drew. So in my year, we had Maurice Jones-Drew, Dennis Dixon, Willie Glassberg, Terrence Colvin, Bail us out, big guys, like a bunch of the guys who've made it out of the NFL, out of the Bay Area to the NFL, was kind of the year that I played, right? And so for me, the way my kind of trajectory and kind of arc went is, dealt with controversy at my high school. For those, who don't know, James Logan, we're a big prestigious school in the Bay Area, right? Put out a lot of kids in track and field. Like, we're well known for having one of the elite track and field programs in the nation still to this day, right? But my senior year I wasn't heavily recruited coming out of high school. So I wasn't heavily recruited coming out of high school, anything like that. And so my senior year, I went up to Oregon. I went to the University of Oregon they had a It's like
Yeah.
a camp for kids, like a camp for
Hmm.
full contact camp, right? You know how they do those like full contact camps. So went up there, didn't tell anybody I was going, didn't tell my coaches, didn't tell my
Sure.
family, nobody, right? I'm like, I'm gonna go up there and just see what I can do. So I go up there. It's a 3-day camp. They put me on the team called the Renegades. The Renegades is basically like a bunch of players
Yeah.
just randomly they put you together, right? So I'm up there with a bunch of just people. So the whole camp, I'm like lighting it up. I get MVP of the whole camp. And at that time, they had everybody from Terrence Colvin there to who else was there? I want to say Dennis Dixon. A lot of their like recruits in that 2006 Oregon team
Wow.
was in that camp that I competed against. So yeah. So Coach Aliotti, who was the head coach, who was the defensive coordinator at the time, Coach Aliotti comes up to me and he goes, "Hey kid, who are you?" And I'm explaining to him like I'm from this school down in California. This and he goes, "All right." So the whole time he's watching, right? He's watching me the whole time. He's like, "I want you to play this position. I want you to play that position." So I'm playing a bunch of different positions, right? I'm like, "All right, whatever he wants me to do."
Of course.
I didn't know anything. So I get MVP. I get MVP of the camp right over their recruits that they brought in. So I come back to my school that year, and my coach is like, "Dude, you up to Oregon?" I show him the thing. He's like, "You got MVP of the whole thing, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got MVP." So I'm riding on a high.
Absolutely.
I'm riding on a high the whole entire time. Riding on a high. I was like, dude, I went up there and kicked all your recruits' ass. Nobody knows who I was. Go through my whole senior year, go through the whole thing, right? I didn't get one letter. Like, didn't get anything from them, didn't get any letters, right? I'm like, this is crazy, right? Like, didn't hear back from them, nothing. So I'm struggling to figure out what's my next move after high school is over. Like, what do I do with myself, right? So luckily, some JUCO coaches that I knew, they were like, dude, come the JUCO route, right? So end up going to college in San Mateo. Shout out to all my Bulldogs. Julian Edelman was there at the time. So Julian Edelman recruited me through some friends. Jules was like, he knew about me. He's like, hey, dude, come over here at college in San Mateo. They'll put you on. So Julian he was a sophomore. I was a freshman at the time when I was there. Julian gets there. He ends up leaving. We all know where Julian's career goes off, right? You know, Julian's Hall of Fame career at this point, right? Like, put the guy in the Hall of Fame. So I ended up playing JUCO ball for a year, ended up going to UNLV. Played at UNLV now for the next 2 years. I'm rivals with Colin Kaepernick.
Wow.
I'm there during the Kaepernick
touching
years.
them all. You're literally touching all of them, bro.
Yeah.
Murray Short and
Right.
Julian Edelman, Cap, like,
right?
who didn't you play with?
Julian Edelman, Cap, like, these are the guys, like, playing the guys that I'm playing against, right? So I'm there during the whole time in Vegas playing that, right? So go through my whole college career. And so towards the end of my college career, I started to see kind of the writing on the wall, right? I started to see the writing on the wall. It's like, hey, there's not a chance for me to go to the NFL. Like a bunch of my teammates, Joe Howley and a bunch of guys there end up getting drafted to the NFL, right? So they end up getting drafted to the NFL. I'm like, all right. So at that point, I'm like, what do I do with myself? How do I transition out of this? So I'm like, you know what? Let me come back home. So come back to the Bay Area. At that point, I'm like, okay, what's my next step? Started training again at Velocity Sports Performance at the time with a bunch of my coaches who got me ready to go back to the NFL or go to college. So I started getting calls from the CFL. They're like, hey, we know about you, come try out for the CFL, right? So got calls from the CFL, ended up going to play to the CFL for 2 years. 1 year in Montreal, 1 year in Ottawa, like go up there and playing in the CFL for 2 years, right? I'm like, all right, cool. So now I'm playing there by the time I'm 26, right? It's like 25, 26. I'm like, dude, this isn't going anywhere. I'm like, what am I doing with myself now, right? I'm like, people are telling me like, dude, you're still a good athlete. You can still play. You can still, I'm like, nah. I'm like, I can just see, I'm like, I can keep trying to run my head through this door and try to make it, or I can kind of just try to find the next part of my life, right? So, that's where the first transition happened, right? And this is, I think, for a lot of coaches probably relate to this, is that's where the first transition of my life happens. It's like, okay, I'm done playing my career at 25, 26 years old. Still in the peak of my career, athletically, physically, like I'm still in the peak, right? But I come back home and no one's around. None of my friends are there. College teammates are gone. Everybody's pretty much gone that I grew up with. I'm like, what do I do with myself? Now, I'll go through a bit of a depression period because I'm like, I don't have football anymore. I don't have any type of competitive outlet. So my mom helped me at the job, I started to get a job at the hospital where I worked as a kid. She goes, hey, come work at the hospital. You've always done this, all that kind of stuff. So for the next 2 to 3 years, I started now just, going through being a hospital, right? Go through the hospital programs. I became an x-ray tech on my way to becoming a nurse. I thought nursing was in my future, dude. Like, no lie, when I tell people I was on the way to
Yeah.
becoming a nurse, they're like,
Yeah.
bro, what? I'm like, I was legit on my way to becoming a nurse, dude, right? But along those lines, while I'm doing that, is I'm going to nursing school, going to school, doing all that. But during the day, so I'm working night shift, right? Working night shift. During the day, I would go take internships. So I would go take internships at the local sports performance facility because my head coach at JUCO was the head of the Riken Center, which is a big sports performance facility here in the Bay Area. So he's like, JD, come here, come do an internship. You love working out. You love all that kind of stuff. Your teammates love you, all this kind of stuff, right? I'm like, cool. So now I'm going to work doing my 9 to 5 at one period. And then on the second hand part, I'm doing internships during the day. I'm like, all right, I think I kind of like doing this, right? So I'm starting to like get asked questions by like the doctors and nurses, all this kind of stuff. They're asking me questions. They're like, dude, you really know your shit. Like, you really know your exercise physiology. You really know all this kind of stuff, right? And mind you, I forgot, I graduated from UNLV, got my bachelor's there, came back to Cal State East Bay, got my master's as well, right? So ended up finishing up, get my master's degree, got all that kind of stuff, right? So got my bachelor's, got my master's. And so I'm like, okay, can I make this a career? Can I make being a personal trainer or strength and conditioning?
Yeah.
I knew nothing about it, right? Knew nothing about being a strength coach, knew none of that kind of stuff, right? So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take internships. I'm like, I'm going to work. So 2 to 3 years in, I kind of faced a hard line. I'm like, what do I do here? Is either I go into nursing school, because at this point now, I'm like, I either go to nursing school and kind of be unhappy. It's like, I can make a lot of money being a nurse, but I'm not passionate about it. Like, what do I do here? I'm not passionate about this, but I am passionate about training and working out and exercising and all that. So I'm like, you know what? I saved enough money. I made the leap. I made the leap out there. I go to this private facility, a little bitty private facility in Palo Alto. I'm like, let me just start being a personal trainer. So the first year or two, dude, I really don't have any clients. I'm losing money. I'm like, I'm losing money now. I'm like, I went from making $35 an hour.
And how old are you at the time?
I'm like, I was
27
at the time, like 27, 28 at the time, right? Yeah. I'm not making any money, dude. I go from making 35 with a guaranteed 401k, retirement, the whole thing, to now I'm making $15
with
an
no
hour,
benefits,
dude, as a personal trainer. I'm like, with no benefits, nothing, right? I'm like, dude, what am I doing with myself? My parents are constantly on me. They're like, where's your bank account going? Like, you went from having this big nest egg to having money. Now you're struggling. And I'm like, no, I'm going to make it. I'm going to do this and that.
Yeah.
Right. So like most strength coaches, right? You're not making much money. You're trying to figure out, like, eventually it'll turn. So for me, I've always had a work ethic where it's like, you know what? I'm going to make something happen. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make something happen. Right. So I'm bouncing around. So I'm at the private facility. From there, I'm still collaborating with a bunch of my old teammates, a bunch of my old college strength coaches. I'm like, hey, how can I advance myself up the ladder? How can I start to do this? So I go back to Core Performance or Velocity Sports, which now has a new owner. She's now in charge of the whole facility. She changes the name over to Core Performance Volleyball. It's a whole different facility. She goes, come back here. I want you to coach my volleyball girls. She's like, I know you know this stuff. Come back here. So I go back there. I take over the strength and conditioning coach now for the entire club volleyball team. Like, I'm in charge of the whole entire club volleyball team. So now during my time there, I want to say my year and a half there, we end up winning two state titles, as well as like just turning the whole program over, right? So now the booming. So at that point, I'm like, okay, I need to expand. I'm like, I know I'm good. I can take this over. So now another coach of mine, she's now at the Academy of Arts at Division II school. She calls me and she's like, dude, I got a Division II job for you. She was like, you want to come into the Academy of Arts? I'm like, the Academy of Arts? I'm like, they got sports? I'm like, it's an art school. Like,
yo, the Academy of Arts.
Art school. Oh, the Academy of Arts,
bro.
Like, it's an art school. She's like, come to the. She's like, just come. She's like, just come and see what I'm talking about. I'm like, all right. I wanted to get
Yes.
into the college sector, right? I'm like, I'm in the private sector. I want
Yeah.
to go work with athletes because at Core Performance, I'm working with Gen Pop, but I'm
Right.
also working with
Right.
athletes at the same time, right? So I'm like, I want to go back
Mm.
into the college setting, man. I'm like, let me
Yep.
get back into the college sector. So I'm like, you know what? So I go into the facility, I go in there, so I go to meet her, and she's taking me down, and literally, dude, their weight room, still to this day, their weight room is like
Yeah.
downstairs, like
Yeah.
the basement, right? So she's like, you're gonna walk down the stairs, there's a basement, watch your head, you might hit your head. I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
God, what am I walking into? So I walk in there, dude. Facility is
What?
immaculate, bro. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, this is crazy. She's like, it's nice, right? I'm like, what? She's like, we get a lot of our equipment donated from the 49ers. She's like, a lot of them have uh, kids that went here, or they know kids, or they just
Sure.
donated. Like a lot of teams will do this.
Yeah.
They'll do like donations.
Hmm.
They'll donate old equipment, all that kind of stuff, right? So I'm like, dude, this is crazy. So she's like, what do you think? I'm like, man, absolutely. So
Yep.
here's where it got real, right? So at Core Performance, now I'm back to making
Sure.
like 25, 30 an hour, right? She comes to me and she goes, look, I'm going to tell you this right now, though. She goes, being a strength and conditioning coach in college is a glorified personal trainer job. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, you're
Mm.
not making a lot of money. I'm like, nah, no way. She's like, you're going to make $20 an hour. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah, you're going
Yeah.
to be making like $20 an hour. I'm like, all right. So it's $20 an hour, and now I'm
Mm.
managing three teams. So, like you said, most coaches, I'm making $20 an hour managing three teams. I'm managing girls softball, track and field, and boys baseball. Right. So I'm managing three teams, crazy hours. I got to be there
Yeah.
like 6 in the morning, coaching my teams, spread out, coach another team, later on in the afternoon, coach another team. Right. I'm like, this is crazy. Mind you, for anybody that knows the Bay Area in California, prices are expensive to live here. Right? I'm making $20 an hour as
Yeah.
a college
Yeah.
strength coach. I'm like, this is
Mm.
insane, right? So I'm like, okay, what do I do here? I'm like, now I'm having clients on the side too. So now I'm splitting time. I'm splitting time between the Academy of Arts
Right.
and at Core Performance.
Right.
So I'm like, I've got to make money. Like most strength coaches, you're burning both
Mm.
the candle at both ends, right? So I'm at a Division II school, but also having a coach at the club sector at Gen Pop at the same time, right? So it's like, okay, this is the burnout, right? That most coaches go through. It's like, I got to find a way to make ends meet. So during that time while I'm there, I'm like, okay, now it's time for my second transition. I'm like, okay, I got to make another transition. I'm like, I can't continue to work. I'm losing money again. Parking tickets, this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
commute, all this kind
Yeah.
of stuff, right? I have no life. I'm like, I've got to make
Mm.
another transition, right? So now I'm going 29, going into 30. I'm like, dude, I've got to make a transition now. I'm like, okay, I'm 30 years old. I'm barely making any money. I'm making 25, 35, $30 an hour. I'm like, what am I doing? And I'm having
Mm.
fun, but I'm not getting paid, right? I'm having fun coaching athletes, getting results, but I'm not getting paid. I'm not making any money, right? I'm like, okay, I need to go and be around where money is. Like, where do I find where the money is? I go back to the private sector. I'm like, you know what? There is this facility over in Palo Alto near Stanford. So now, again, I'm working my connects through Jenna Pop. I reach out to this lady who has a little bitty hole in the wall studio type place. So now I'm leaving Division II, where I'm up there, potentially could take over, go to Division
Sure.
One. I'm getting contacts, people saying come to Division I, right? And during this whole time, again, I'm still taking internships. I did an internship at Exos during that time, right? So I've
Yeah.
done an internship at Exos, did a 6 month internship at Exos where I'd spend time back and
Wow.
forth flying out there, right? So did an internship at Exos. Yeah. So I did an internship at Exos for 6 months. Did that whole thing, went through all three of their performance phase, 1, 2, and 3 of their mentorships there, right? So I'm highly qualified,
Yeah.
like highly qualified, got all the qualifications, all the experience, all this kind of stuff. But again, no money. I'm like, dude, there's not any money here. So I go to this lady. I'm like, you know what? She's in Palo Alto. I know that's where all the affluent people are, where all the money is. I'm like, all right, let me go here. So I go to this little hole in the wall facility. She's like, I want you to take over as my head, of performance. I'm like, cool. You're working with regular people.
Yeah.
There ain't no
Yeah.
athletes in
Yeah.
here.
You
But
like
at this point,
performance. Like,
I'm like,
what are you talking about? Like, okay. Yeah.
moms and dads and like CEOs and execs and all this kind
Yeah.
of stuff. I'm like, okay, whatever. but I needed
Yeah.
to make money, right? So now I'm dealing with the conflict of, okay, I'm here, I'm making a lot of money. She bumped me up to like
Wow.
65 an hour. I'm like, dude, I jumped, bro, to 65 an hour. But now I'm dealing with the internal struggle of, I
Yeah.
want to coach athletes. I'm like, I'm working with general population, but I want to coach athletes. I'm like, dude, what do I do? Right? So again, I'm working there, making money to make ends meet. Now I'm splitting time again. I get a job at a CrossFit facility. I'm like, dude, let me
Yeah.
go coach a CrossFit facility. They've got athletes there. Let me go get into the CrossFit sector. This is when CrossFit started booming. I want to say
Sure.
2015, right? Like the
Mm-hmm.
CrossFit boom started to happen. I'm like, all right, let me transition into the CrossFit sector, right? So now I go in there. I knew some of my friends who were doing CrossFit. I'm like, dude, come coach here. So now I'm like, all right, cool. I'm back to coaching athletes. Like
Yeah.
I'm scratching my
Yeah.
itch. I'm scratching my itch for making money and also wanting to coach athletes at the same time, which I know a lot
Yeah.
of
Yep.
coaches struggle with, right? Is a lot of them don't want to leave the college sector, the pro sector, whatever it is, because they've been around athletes
Right.
their whole entire lives. So coaching Gen Pop is like, no, like I'm not going to coach general
Yeah.
population. Like
Yeah.
I'm just not doing it, right? But I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm like, I can make it work, right? It's like I'll deal with the long hours, I'll deal with all that kind of stuff, right? So during the time that I'm working for her and then coaching at the CrossFit, class, I help athletes like at the CrossFit studio. I had two athletes qualify for the semifinals to go to the CrossFit Games. I'm having all kind of like big stuff happen to me, right? Like getting results,
Yeah.
getting all kind of crazy results. So we ended up blowing the place up so big at her facility. I ended up helping her open a 15,000
Wow.
square foot place. So we grew the business, dude, based off me getting results, my connections, everything. We ended up growing so fast. And you can look at a place called Palo Alto Fit. We ended up growing the place up to a 15,000 square foot facility, dude, like indoor turf, like
Wow.
60-yard indoor turf, squat racks. I mean, you name it. Like you look at the place, you're like,
Like
this is a
a
pro
performance
performance
center.
facility because she
Yeah.
basically, yeah, it was a performance center. Like she basically told me, you come from that background. I'm going to give you the keys. You design it how you want to. You outfit it how you want to. You build the whole facility
Wow.
from scratch,
Wow.
right? So now I literally, bro, am able to just build it out how
Mm.
I wanted to. Like it's all the
Yeah.
toys, everything in there, right? Like built the whole place up
Wow.
from scratch, 15,000 square foot facility, right? So I'm now Kendrick, my hours, dude. So I'm working my hours from at that place from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. 5 days a week, right? Just completely booked with athletes from Stanford University. I got pro athletes coming to see me. I got Stanford University athletes coming to see me because
Yep.
we're affiliated with Stanford. So a lot of them, we're like an offsite of Stanford now, right? The facility is right down the street from Stanford. So I've got all Stanford track and field, basketball, football, you name it, coming to see me at my facility. All the high school kids coming to see me at the facility. I'm booked from, like I said, 6
Mm.
a.m. to 8 p.m., right? I'm making at that point, she raised my wage up. I'm making
Wow.
$85 an hour. I'm making
Mm-hmm.
$85 an hour at that point, right? So it was so crazy. Like my schedule was so busy. Now I'm managing a staff, right? So we've grown the place so big. I have a staff now. Like I have a staff of
Oh,
six other
wow.
strength and conditioning coaches that we're doing. I got six other coaches underneath me now, right? So 600 coaches underneath me. I'm doing continuing education seminars. I'm running it like a full-on performance
Absolutely. Yeah.
facility there, right? Dude, it was so busy to the point that anytime I had a cancellation, people would call and jump in my schedule right away. She's like, I got somebody who wants to work with you right now. I don't know how they would find
Wow.
out if she would call. It was like right away. Even my staff, it was so wild. My staff was like, I've never seen with someone's schedule consistently
Mm.
busy as yours is. And it was crazy. It was like, I was happy, right? I'm bringing in, this is the part where I go to private sector. I'm bringing in, no lie, on a weekly basis, anywhere between 2,500 and
Wow.
$3,000 a week.
Oh,
A week, like on a weekly basis, a week. It was to the point where anytime my check was under
yeah.
2,500, she was shocked. She was like, I've never seen your check under
Mm.
2,500. She's like, it's a slow
Mm.
week, right? Like I was able to travel. I'd pay for like a full week in Barcelona and Portugal and all that on a
Wow.
week's worth of like salary. I'm like, oh, I can go spend 10 days on a week's worth of salary because I'm normally
Yeah.
going to make that 2,500
Yeah.
back the next week. Right. So completely just hand over fist, bringing in money. Right. So I'm doing that, coaching all my gym pop athletes, doing that, still coaching CrossFit at the same time. So again, you see, I'm working 5 days a week, still working
Yep.
12-hour shifts a day, right? Making money. Isn't that I came from
Yeah.
struggle, making $15. So now I'm like raking in dough, right? So now this is up until I want to say 4 years ago, COVID hits, right? So now up until 4 years ago, COVID hits. I'm like, okay, what are we gonna do? So now when the COVID
Yep.
lockdowns first happened, I kept the facility open, right? So at this point, a lot of my clientele are, I got the Spotify CEO, I've got investors, I've got investors who are my clients, I've got big
Yeah.
name people who are like my clientele, right? And they care about me. Like I've got Stanford people, I've got professors, all of them are my clientele. People who are really making money and like who are big names in the world, right? So a lot of them I developed friendships with, right? And this is the part
Yeah.
where I think a lot of coaches like to
Yeah.
talk about developing friendships. So during that time, we're starting to like go against COVID protocols, right? And yes,
Wait, just a sec. So for those of you that don't know,
okay?
well, no, for those of you that don't know where John's at, he's in California. And if you guys haven't picked up on that Stanford, if you guys haven't picked up on the Bay Area yet, but he's in California. Okay. For those of you that are still kind of like, where's he at? So he's in California. So when he's saying that he's violating COVID protocols, when COVID was happening, I was in Georgia and we just acted like it didn't exist.
Yeah.
Like straight up. We were just like, mask,
Yeah.
what is that? 6 feet apart, what is that? Like we just acted like it didn't exist. And essentially, whatever. But so when he said that he's breaking COVID protocols in California at that time, is a much bigger deal than what maybe the majority of us kind of faced.
Yeah. So like you said, they had the full lockdowns here, right? Like COVID protocols in California. I mean, I think we were under lockdown longer than any other state. Like maybe besides New York, California was under lockdown ridiculously long.
Yeah.
Right? Dude, crazy.
Bro, y'all are still locked down.
Right? So we're still locked down, bro. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
We're still locked down, dude. Like it's wild, man. So we're in lockdown, right? Everybody's saying the lockdown, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Like, all right,
flatten the curve,
for 2 or 3 weeks. So we locked down, flatten the curve, right? We locked down, I want to say the first week. So I'm sneaking people in, right? Like I'm sneaking people into our facility, making sure they take the back door. A few of my clients that are like, they're well off, they hit me like, dude, look, JD, we care about you. They're like, dude, you've got to stop. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, the last thing that we want for you to do is for somebody to catch COVID in your facility and you're known for them catching COVID and potentially dying. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. So So I go to her and I'm like, look, I think we do need to shut down. I'm like, let's just stop. They say it's supposed to take 3 weeks. Let's just shut everything down, right? Like, let's stop, right? So she's like, all right, let's do it. So again, lockdown continues on for 6 months to a year, right? So during that whole time, right? So during that whole time, I'm not taking in person. So now this is where my third transition starts to happen, right? So now I'm not taking any clients at her facility, at the facility that we have. I'm now going to clients' homes, like doing in-home training, or we're doing Zoom training, right? Or remote coaching, right? We're doing remote coaching. I'm like, okay. I'm like, so I can do this. I'm like, all right, let's make this happen, right? So now my clients are starting to pay me instead of paying her. So now I'm getting the bulk of all of it. They're paying me. I'm like, okay, now I can grow this business. I'm like, let's do this, right? So during that whole time, my clients are not paying me what they want to pay me, right? I'm giving them, they're paying me $100 an hour. They're like, yo, here's 100, 125 an hour. All mine. Nothing has to do with her, right? So by the time COVID starts to end of it, I'm like, okay, I'm planning on going back into the facility with her, right? I'm like, all right, I'm going to go back into the facility with her. We ended up falling out because she ends up following my Venmo account. She ends up following my Venmo account and seeing clients paying me straight to me. She gets upset. She's like, why are your clients paying you and they're not paying me? I'm like, well, I'm not using your facility. I'm like, they're paying me and I'm going to their house. We ended up falling out, dude. I ended up leaving the facility. And mind you, like I said, I'm bringing in all this money, dude. I'm like, okay, I've got to transition now. I'm like, I go from making $2,500 a week to now I'm like, okay, I'm bringing like 15. I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay, now I gotta make another transition, right? So now I'm like, okay, what do I do? I'm like, how do I go about transitioning from having all this money and everything to now I gotta figure out what my next business move is, right? So that's when I went through the OPEX mentorship, right? And OPEX is like they're known in the CrossFit space. They're mostly known in the CrossFit space, but they do focus on like principles of teaching you, all kind of strength and conditioning work, right? But they're big about remote coaching. They're big about remote coaching and showing you how to build a business, right? So I go through that whole internship, and that's when I end up meeting Stu McMillan. Like me and Stu are good friends. I end up meeting Stu. Did a mentorship at Altus. So I did a mentorship at Altus now. Yeah. So did an internship at Altus now. So now, like I said, I'm like, okay, I'm still learning, still growing. I'm like, okay, let me build my business out, right? So now I transitioned to now the remote coaching side. Okay, I'm like, okay, this is when it started to become a little bit easier because during COVID, people were doing home training anyway. Right? A lot of people started to build their own home gyms. They're still scared. They're scared to go back outside. So I see it as a way to capitalize. I'm like, how can I capitalize on people now wanting to have their own home gyms? So now I'm starting to reach out to people and I'm like, hey, I'm offering remote coaching, right? I'm like, I'm building my remote coaching business now. So now I'm starting to go through the process of reaching out to my clients that I currently have, some of my athletes that I have. I'm like, hey guys, I'm doing remote coaching. Here's my prices that I want to do for remote coaching. They're like, okay, what does that include? I'm like, still includes all the training, nutrition, accountability, all that kind of stuff. You're just not coming to see me in person anymore. We're strictly doing it where we're going to do it online, not Zoom, anything. I'm literally delivering, like say, through Train Heroic, True Coach, like delivering through True Coach at the time, right? I'm just delivering all of that kind of stuff. So now it's starting to pick up. Everybody's like, dude, I'm kind of liking the remote coaching side of things. I'm like, okay, this is now I see where the future of training is going, right? I'm like, I see now the future of training is people are like, I feel comfortable working out at home. I don't need you to be there. And now for me, it's allowing me to have work-life balance. I'm like, dude, I can actually coach people, both athletes and Gen Pop, while not having to be on the floor for 8 to 10 hours a day anymore. I'm like, now I start to see light bulb goes off. I'm like, light bulb goes off. I'm like, okay, let's start to scale this thing up, right? So now I'm reaching out, like I said, using all of my, referrals, building it up the referrals. From that point, I'm like, okay, let's go to the paid ad route, right? So now I'm like, okay, let's go to the paid ad route. So I ended up linking up to a friend of mine who had already built his business up to making $10K a month. He's making $10K a month off his remote coaching business. Like, dude, I got a guy for you. Reach out to him. I'm like, all right, cool, let's do this, right? So I started doing paid ads. Go to paid ad route, and now, like I said, I'm getting in between 5 and 10 leads a week. I'm like, I'm getting 5 to 10 leads a week of people wanting to do remote coaching. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm like, so I'm looking at my numbers. I'm like, okay, so I only need to charge $400 a month. I'm like, dude, $400 a month, it's $100 a week. I'm like, $100 a week, right? And this is where I tell coaches all the time. I'm talking on Twitter about the numbers. I'm like, okay, I charge somebody $400 a week, $400 a month. I'm like, so I only need 10 clients. That's $4,000. I'm like, so if I scale this up, I'm like, now I'm seeing it in my head, right? I'm like, I can make more money by doing less work and not having a whole lot of clients, right? So now I scale it up. I'm like, okay, I'm like starting to scale it. I'm like, so now I tell coaches all the time, I'm at the point now where it's like, I have my current client base. I have 100 clients paying me anywhere between $300 and $425.
And they're all actively paying, all of them?
Right. They're all actively paying between $300 and $425 a month, right? for in person, I tell any of them, if you want to do in person, I rent a facility, right? So what I do now for in person is I
Mm-hmm.
basically lease a facility. Is I'll go find a local CrossFit gym that I have. It's like, hey, I'll
Sure.
pay you monthly rent.
Sure.
Like, I'll just pay you monthly rent for some of my clients who want to do in person. Pay monthly rent and do that, and then I'll just train for those who want to do in person. I'm going to charge you more because I don't have to do this. It's like I'm going to charge you a little bit extra because okay, you want to do in person training, cool. Which I'll still do. You know, my high
Sure.
school guys. I'll
Sure.
have some pro guys come back. I'll have throughout the year, right? I'll do college combine, high school combine, pro combine, cool. But the majority of my time, I'm working no more than 3 to 6 hours a day, 3 to
That's
4 hours a day. It's like 3 to 4
sure.
hours a day in person, and then the majority of the time is mostly remote, and I'm only working
Wow.
Monday through Thursday.
So okay, so this is why I wanted to have a conversation, you know, with you and go from here because first of all, what you just covered, there's so much depth to that. There's so much depth to the knowledge base, to the expertise, to the component of I was at for free, right? Internships to $15 an hour. Thought I was doing well to, 30. Oh, great. Back to 25, right? Like there's, if you're following along, many people probably have a similar story. Many people probably have something that's like, I wanted to be a personal trainer. I wanted to be a coach. I didn't know how to break in. Then I broke in and then I realized like there was no bread there. And then I either left or I don't know what I tried to do. They tried to do this online thing and maybe it didn't work and whatever the case may be. So a couple of things. One, when you were working at the facility that you blew up, what were you doing so well that got you the results to really like blow up, right? Because a lot of relationships. It wasn't your programming. It wasn't your 3x5 at X%. It was all relationship based.
It was relationships, dude. And I gotta tell you, and this is when, I have this debate with coaches online all the time, right? Anybody that follows me and anybody knows the conversations I talk about is it's all about relationships in this business, dude. It's like I said, I went from working with athletes to now I'm working with moms and dads and people who have jobs, right? I'm going from using the most strategic protocol to now we're literally doing the same program for months on end. We're doing 8, 10, 12 squats, goblet squat, lunges, TRX rows. We're not sprinting. We're not jumping. We're not doing anything. I'm literally just having these people come in.
Just move.
And
literally
move
just
around,
move.
Right? Just literally just move, dude. It's like they're not worried about how much they back squat. A lot of them never touched a barbell, right? But what they did like is they liked the way I talked to them. They liked the way I built the relationship with them, right? As I would come in, we're talking about movies, traveling, what type of wine they like to drink, how's their kids doing, this type of stuff, right? Is a lot of them were in there. They're like, hey, I just want to come in here and just talk to you. Just enjoy our conversation. Like, there's a few of my clients that I still have to this day that I've been with, dude, like 10 years now. And I've talked about this before on Twitter. It's like, I've been with them for 10 years and we're literally running the same program we did from year one, right? But they've openly admitted to me they love talking to me and just being around me. They're like, I don't know anything about your career. Like I was talking to Jack, with Jack Van Dam was talking about this the other day, is I've got clients who haven't asked me about my playing career at all. Like literally could care less about where I played, who I played with, anything. They come in and ask me, hey, what new Netflix shows have you watched? What have you watched the Game of Thrones episode? Are you watching the new tennis match, right? Legit could care less about how much you're squatting for the day, all that kind of stuff. They literally want to come in and just sweat, move, know they got to go work out, go home to their kids, and
feel like they did something productive, right? And it's so funny because if you're listening, go back, re-listen to that. And if you haven't really understood the concept of it's about relationships and it's not necessarily so much about this intricate program that you know how to do. right? And this still applies with athletes. Like this literally applies to athletes.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of my time when I coach my athletes is spent BSing with them. Just like you're saying, having conversation, asking them about their day. We talk about tattoos. We talk about the new Netflix show that's out. We talk about what they're going to do that weekend if we're out of season. All this, like, it is just hanging with the boys. Like, that's what I related to. That's literally like, if we were to sit down and you were to come over, like, we're just going to BS. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to talk, we'll have a conversation, we're going to make fun of each other, we're going to laugh, and we're going to tell some jokes, and then we're going to, like, watch a show or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it is. And it's like, it's all relationship based. It's all like, nobody, the most cliche thing, but the truest thing, it's the reason why people always say is nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. You've been working with somebody for 10 years. They've never asked you about being a professional athlete. They've never asked you about your programming. They never asked you about, hey, tell me about your time at Altus. Tell me about your time at OPEC. Tell me about your time at Exos. Tell me about your time at they've never asked about that because they don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't, they're like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, okay, cool. I'm doing this. Oh, cool. My husband and I just went there. Oh, that's awesome. Right? Like, that's what it's about. It's not about really anything else than that, you know? If I will put a caveat though, if you are in the collegiate sector, or you're working with professional athletes, I'm going to say you do have a little bit more obligation to have an intricate program and to actually have a thought out process and all that stuff, right? Doesn't mean that you shouldn't at a Gen Pop center or just a regular gym or anything. But what we're saying is the clients don't care, right? That's what we're saying. And quite frankly, I don't even think our college athletes care either, but they don't.
No, they don't. And that's
the
biggest part for me, right? Is that's what I talk to a lot of coaches about is I said we can get into the X's and O's and the physiology and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, I'll go down a rabbit hole with all that kind of stuff if anybody wants to go there, right? It's like we can talk about all the details of blood work and all that kind of stuff. We really want to do that, right? I said, but at the end of the day, you're going to be remembered for athletes. They're going to remember you for how well you make them feel, like you said, right? Any of us as coaches, always we can remember a coach who made us feel a certain way, right? Every single one of us to this day, we all have that those one or two coaches that we can know. It's like, dude, I love him because of what he taught me. It wasn't about the X's and O's. It wasn't about this programming. It wasn't about anything. It was like he made me or she made me feel a certain type of way. They believed in me or they talked to me or they cared about me. That's what they remember about them, right? It's like, I had this strength coach who dude was a dickhead because he's this and that. It's like, we didn't talk about his programming. He's like, no, dude was just a dickhead. His personality just sucked, right? And that's the part where when I see coaches online and we argue and bicker about programming and talk about sprinting and jumping, I'm like, it doesn't matter. And I think the issue is, and this is a big part of it is, like you mentioned earlier, a lot of us as coaches got into coaching because of failed athletic endeavors, right? Is we failed as athletes, and so we jumped into coaching because it gave us an outlet. It gave us an outlet to still be competitive in some way, and it made us want to still look out, be close to the sport, whatever it may be, right? But along those lines, for a lot of us, there's this hard separation of our ego and now what's best for the athlete, right? Is a lot of coaches in our field are very much ego driven. Is we want to do what's best for us and not what's best for the athlete, right? When we get into the debate, whether it's the back squat debate, should you back squat? Should you not, do unilateral work? Throughout all of this time that I've learned from coaching thousands of clients, writing thousands of programs, right? I'm going to do what the athlete and what the client enjoys doing. So if an athlete or a client tells me they enjoy back squatting, who am I to say you can't back squat because, the research says this? They like back squatting. That client likes back squatting. They enjoy it. They need to enjoy their fitness. It's not about me. What does the client enjoy doing? What does the athlete enjoy doing? Yeah, do I have an obligation to an athlete to get results? Of course. Absolutely. So I am going to do things that I know are not going to get them hurt and are not going to potentially compromise them. But at the same time, I need to give the athlete what they enjoy doing, because we know just from a mental standpoint, when you enjoy something, you're going to try harder. So if I tell an athlete we're never going to back squat, they're going to look at it, well, I enjoy it. Now their performance probably is going to go down, not because they're not back squatting, you did something else, but because they're not doing it as hard as they want to anymore. They're like, I don't like it anymore, right? So there's this big part of it where, as coaches, we have what I call like this God complex, where we feel like we have to control everything and not give the client what they want. And it's a reason why a lot of coaches struggle to grow their business, to make money and things like that, because they're doing it in a way that they want to do it and not necessarily in a way that the client enjoys doing their fitness, right? It's like, if the client enjoys doing 5x5 for back squats forever, cool. We're going to do 5x5 forever on your back squat, whatever you want to do. I'm just going to be here to guide you, and you can use me as an outlet for if you have questions. But other than that, if you enjoy it, let's run with it.
So I agree with you. And then I have a question with you with that as well, because I hear and I understand and I agree with what you're saying. My question now then becomes, okay, and I'm going to apply this more to the Gen Pop population. If they say, okay, I want to do 5x5 back squat. Okay, great. Fantastic. Love that. No issue whatsoever. Where's the line? Where's the boundary? Where's the overlap of you're doing what you enjoy, which is fantastic, which keeps you coming back, right? So, give them what they want to do, sell them what they want, give them what they need, right? Where's then the overlap of like, okay, but I need to get you results, and we have to do things a little bit this way, right? You have autonomy, not just full autonomy, do whatever you want to do today, but where's that overlap for you, particularly in regards of like, you want to do 5x5 back squat? Fantastic. But let's make sure we get results here as well to keep you coming back, because I just don't want you to come for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, and then leave. So where's that at kind of for you in regards of like client autonomy, but at the same time, we have to get results. Otherwise, we're just kind of spinning our wheels. Or are you okay with spinning your wheels for a little bit?
So I think what it goes back to, and this is both for coaches and for dealing with clients and athletes, right? It's alignment. This is something that I learned throughout my time of working through OPEX and working through with Stu, and also says alignment, right? They preach about what is your alignment? What is your goals? What do you understand what that is, right? Is oftentimes, again, this goes back to, like I said, coaches trying to control the narrative. Coaches trying to control what athletes like and what they don't like. Where does the client align with their goals? What does the client want to accomplish, right? So now my job is throughout the time, and this is why I say working with Gen Pop has helped me with athletes and not vice versa, is I can now understand what makes a person tick, right? What is the true reason why you're doing this fitness journey? Why are you in the gym working out? What is it that you're seeking to do? Is it performance related? Is it an insecurity issue? Is there an aesthetic goal? What is it that you want to do, right? So now I ask the client, are you in alignment with that goal? How does your life and priorities line up with that goal, right? And I ask the same question to my athletes. You tell me you want to go pro. You tell me you want to make all conference. You tell me you want to do these things. How does your life align with that goal? Are you doing everything it takes to align with that goal, right? So now for me, I take the pressure off of me as a coach and put it onto the client and the athlete, right? Because oftentimes coaches get sabotaged for not getting results when they've done everything in their power. But what is the client or athlete doing the other 22 to 23 hours of the day, right? And it's hard in the collegiate setting. In the collegiate setting, it's easier because you can kind of control more variables, right? It's like, they're going to school, their classwork, all that kind of stuff. But you also don't have as much control either, because you don't know where they're going to eat. They don't have as much money. They don't have all this kind of stuff. So there's also some
Right.
things you can't control as well, right? So we have to do a better job as coaches of finding out what the client and the athlete's goals are. Are they aligned with that goal? Now, how do we educate them to steer them towards everything lining up to get to that result? Right? So now they may say, you know what? 5x5 might not be the right workout for me. Maybe you're right. Maybe I do need to switch to more low intensity zone 2 stuff. Maybe I do need to alter my programming a little bit, right? It's like maybe me running 5x5 this entire time because I like it, but you're trying to tell me as a coach it's probably not the right thing, right? Instead of me trying to beat it over your head and say you were going to do it my way or the highway, we've got to find compromise here, right? But it starts by sitting down and having that conversation. But it starts with the coach themselves being able to be vulnerable enough to put themselves in that conversation, right? A lot of times as coaches, a lot of us have never expanded the other side of our minds. We don't get into the side of learning about people, the psychological side, right? The emotional side. We're all about numbers and data. It's like, oh, we love data, right? Like we talked about, we love tracking the back squat. We love tracking flying 10s. We love tracking the 40, all that kind of stuff. But when is the last time you sat there and asked your athlete, how are you doing mentally? How are you doing physically, right?
Sure.
It's become a bigger thing now, but even for us as coaches, when's the last time we as coaches sat down and evaluated ourselves on that aspect? We're like, am I aligned with my current goals, right? Like I told you throughout my initial first transition, going from the hospital into a trainer, I wasn't aligned with going into nursing school. I knew it wasn't what I wanted to do. The alignment wasn't there. So I would have been doing a job that I literally hated to do all for the sake of making money. Right?
I really enjoy the alignment piece on what you said and how you said it, because I think that is the perspective it provides, the way that it changes the positioning of it, of am I aligned with this, I think is very impactful, because I think here's where we fail too. We say, I'm going to set goals, right? But make sure not just any goal. We got to make it that SMART goal, right? Because, that's what the high achievers do. And so I'm going to make this SMART goal, and now I've got goals, right? Great. Now how many people actually follow through? Right? Not many. How many actually write them down? Not many, right? And so I like the word, the alignment aspect of it, because what I get from it is that there's a congruency. There's a cohesiveness. There's the aspect of a unison, right? That is both fulfilling and achieving at the same time, and rewarding. And so with that, I like that so much more than make sure you set a SMART goal, if I can talk. But the alignment component of it, I think I really enjoy that. And it makes a lot of sense to me, and it makes a lot of sense to probably other people that are listening and people that we coach. Like, what is your, like, are you in alignment with not only what you want to do, but who you want to become too, And are your actions and habits aligning with that, right? Because a lot of times what we try to do is, I want to be this person, but then everything else, like you're saying, those 23, 22 hours of the day are not aligning with who we want to become, right? And, that goes back to what you said on Twitter the other day, which was how crazy it is people don't talk to their athletes, clients about nutrition, right? They think, I got to come in and give them the best and the hardest workout, make sure that they sweat, make sure they're so sore and tired and all this stuff. And it's like, no, absolutely not. It's like there's this other aspect of it that is probably, and I think we all agree, far more beneficial, which is, hey, here's the nutritional component of it. And then also the psychological component of it, which we're so obsessed with
Yes.
data, like you said, with data, with numbers, with tracking my fly 5:10 and tracking how fast I'm doing this and that, which is all cool and great. And if we're talking about performance and we're talking about elite level athletes, I think that's necessary. I really do. Then we also got to talk.
Right.
We also need to talk
Agreed.
about the mental side of that game, the psychological performance side of that, which not many are talking about.
No, not at all. And it's a reason why I alluded to earlier is why so many coaches and athletes struggle post-career, right? Is because
Yep.
your whole life
Yep.
was about performance. Everything was about how much do I bench, squat, clean. Everything was geared towards that, right? So your SMART goal was, okay, we
Right.
need to get you better at this because of, you need to go to the next level. You've got to clean this. You've got to run this 40 in order for you to progress to
Right,
D1,
right.
to go pro, all that kind of stuff. Okay, but there's a psychological aspect of that too. And if you don't hit that,
Then what? Yeah, exactly.
then what happens? Right? So now the athlete and the client is feeling like, I didn't hit that number. Now what? So now are you going to just continue to run them through another strength and conditioning cycle and hope that they get it in this time? But it's like that mentally and emotionally starts to get to you. So now when you are no longer playing anymore, what are you aligning yourself with anymore, right? And now you start to hate fitness in a way. There's a lot of athletes, they'll tell you when they leave playing, they hate working out because they're like, I did it for all the reasons because I had to. They're like, I worked out because I had to, not because I actually enjoy it, right? There's no enjoyment in fitness anymore. And so a big part of why I'm able to retain clients for 6, 7, 10 years is we're making fitness enjoyable. It's like not only are we're getting a good sweat, and we might set goals incrementally, right? It's like I'll definitely set goals with my gym clients, right? It's like, okay, this month we're gonna do a 2-mile bike test. We're gonna do this and that. But everything's not built around that. It's like I'm not building the entire program up around that. Why?
It's a part of you.
Lives.
Yeah.
These people have families. They have things. It's a part of their life.
Yeah.
It's not their entire life. And that's the part where we as coaches miss the boat is we assume fitness is the end all be all for every single person we interact with. We assume that every single client and athlete that comes to us is all about getting better inside of the gym when it's not. And it was the point I was making the other day on Twitter when I said, aside from your starters, the bench players don't care about their performance metrics. They want to look good because they know they don't have a shot at the next level. So for them, throw them a bone and let them do some arms. Throw them a bone and let them do something that lets them feel good, right? Because at the end of the day, for those guys who know they're not going to play anymore, they need to find some enjoyment in training. They need to find some enjoyment in fitness because once they're done and you no longer have access to them, what lessons have you taught them? Have you taught them anything in regards to eating better, to sleeping better? So here's how you're going to train for the rest of your life. They're not going to have access to all the data, the Vertex. They're not going to have the 1080 sprint. They need to be able to go run on a basic treadmill now and work out at the YMCA or 24-hour fitness now. They don't have what you have at the college facility. So are you helping them bridge the gap to that? And that's where the divide is in our field, where I come at it from coaches where it's like, you guys argue about stuff that doesn't matter. I'm like, unless you're working for a pro team, high school, whatever, and that's where your job is measured. If not, the majority of your clientele do not care about those numbers.
It's I mean, it's true, right? And you know, when I look at coaching, I look at it more in I like the word coach. I will say that. I do. I like the word coach. I really do. I like the word coach more than I like personal trainer, more than I like, you know, really anything else. I do like the word coach. I think there's just so much behind it, you know, that's like the most influential people of some people's lives are coaches. Right. And so, but I also look at it from a lens of a teacher, from a lens of a educator, from a lens of a mentor, from a lens of a influence, right? And so what you're saying is very true. And what you're saying is stuff that I think all of our coaches need to attempt to emulate. And I think it was like 7% of high school athletes play at the next level at college, across all colleges.
Yeah.
JUCO, D2, D3, D1, NAIA, 7%. 7. And so, because you're right, like athletes, when they get done working out, a lot of them don't ever want to work out again. They don't ever want to go back to the gym. They don't, one, because they don't know what they're doing. And two, because they felt as if they were forced for however many years to train. Because they're like, well, that's what you need to do. And some fall in love with it, which I love. I love to get the people that don't care about training to get them to care a little bit, care a lot of it. And do that through, like you said, relationships, education. And what I mean by education is I sit down with my athletes, literally, both as a team and individually.
Right.
And we literally have conversation. Hey, what are your questions? How can I help? Blah, blah, blah. Like, and I go through PowerPoint slides with them and we go through as a team. And I think everybody should do this. And we hit on so many different things: leadership, sleep, nutrition, all this stuff. All this is performance based, but it's also life based. And then I also find it really funny when coaches don't train core or arms. I find it so funny. I'm like, why? Like, why not? Like, literally, if you have 10, 15 minutes, do 50 to 60 bicep curls and tricep extensions. You have like 5 minutes to do them. Watch them get one of the fattest pumps they've had in a minute and watch their faces light up. Like, that's what I want you to watch. Watch their face light up. Watch them flex in the mirror. And when you do that and you do that consistently, you're creating buy-in. That's what you're doing. And you're creating buy-in. Everybody wants good arms. Everybody wants capped delts. Everybody wants a six-pack. Who cares? Train it. Train it. They will love you for it. And if you start a session, here's something that I've learned. If they come in sluggish, we're starting our session with bis and tris.
Right.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We're starting our session with bis and tris or a game. A lot of times I play so many games. It's unbelievable. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, let's have fun. Hey, let's go outside. What do you mean? Let's go outside. Come on, grab a ball. What are we doing? I don't know. We're going to figure it out. And then, okay, you guys good? All right, now let's go train, right? Like, to a certain extent, we kind of take the fun out of it, if I'm being honest with you. We got to come in and make sure we hit this. The grind don't stop. Like,
absolutely.
Agreed. But guess what? Let's go have some fun. Yeah. Let's go play for 20 minutes. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not?
Right. And that's the big thing, right? Is like you said, a lot of us, we expect clients and athletes to love training as much as we do, right? Is we expect athletes to come in and they want to train as hard as we do and they want to do everything that we do. It's like, yeah, we would like that. In a perfect ideal world, we would love everybody to be as passionate about fitness as we are, right? It's like eat, sleep, live it, study it, read books, do all that kind of stuff. Like meal prep, do all that kind of stuff. That's not reality, right? And this is where, like I said, where coaches can learn from social media and they can learn from influencers and they can learn to reach out. Look at these things. Look at where your youth athletes are being influenced by. Right? Pay attention to the current trends that your athletes are doing. Watch the movements that they're doing in the gym in their own free time. Watch the questions that they're asking you in their own free time. And this is where I say the older coaches and the younger coaches, there's this divide, is because the older coaches are very much against social media. They're anti-social media at times, right? It's like, I don't want them going on TikTok. I don't want them going on Instagram. It's like, your athletes are going on there. And they're following bodybuilders. And they're following powerlifters. And they're doing that kind of stuff. Your female athletes, they're influenced by the clothing that they're wearing. So you're seeing athletes who are shirtless. You're seeing your women wear little bitty clothes. It's like, they're influenced by this stuff. And so for you, if you're that coach who's very restrictive in nature, you're not open to discussing anything, your athletes are going to shut you off. And so they're like, you know what? You don't like to do any of this stuff that I enjoy. So now your chances of holding on to the athlete longer than they need to be are slim to none. They're like, you know what? Once I'm done with this program and I'm here with you, I'm probably not going to pay you. And I'm really not going to pay you a high premium price point, right? And that's the part where coaches are like, well, I want to be paid more. It's like, then you have to figure out what that client enjoys to get them to pay you more, right? It's like, yeah, you have to be good and get results. Absolutely. We are in a results-based business, right? It's like, yeah, you have to get results to a certain extent. That only lasts so long, right? That's what I talked about before, is after a while, when your client's been with you 5, 6, 7 years, they're not with you for results at that point. So now you've got to figure out something that keeps them coming back. Pretty sure you better go look up the next trend on social media that they're following and what they're looking at. And that's what's going to bring them back to you, right? You better start showing some personality. You going on trips, posting food, posting your dogs, whatever it is. Start to post other things than you working out all the time, because that's what they're going to come in. So it's like, okay, I'm going to do a little bit of balance where I may post a fitness post one day, the next post, I'm going to post me going out to dinner. I'm going to go show something else. So they may say like, dude, where was that restaurant? I've had so many of my clients maybe like, I saw you at such and such restaurant this weekend. Oh man, how was the food there? Next thing you know, they're sending me recommendations. I've had clients give me tickets to Broadway shows. Like, oh, I think you might enjoy this show. I saw you at such and such, where I talked about Mean Girls. They're like, dude, I got tickets for this show I want you to go try out. Now that client's staying with you because they're like, okay, when's the next show? So now you think about it. If the next Broadway show is 3 months down the line, you got that client for the next 3 months. Because they're like, I want to discuss that thing with you 3 months down the line. Versus, oh, we're going to test your back squat in 3 weeks.
Well, and that's, and we were talking off air about this, but that's why it's so important for coaches to have a community and hobbies outside of coaching. And, I'm a huge proponent.
Yes.
I love work hard, play hard. I love the work hard, play hard mentality. I love it. I love it. I love it. But you got to be able to detach, right? And so, you hear the classic sayings of like, don't let your personal life affect your professional life, and don't bring work problems home. Agreed. Is that harder to do? It is.
Agreed.
But you should learn to detach. And I think you learn to detach when you get a little bit older, right? And when things become other things become more important.
Right.
When you have a significant other, when you have kids, when you're working on a side hobby, a passion project, whatever you want to call it. But you have these other things that you're excited about besides just X's and O's of coaching and stuff. And that's fantastic. Good for you. If that's what you love, love that for you too, because I probably love it just as much as you do as well. Yeah. But we can go snowboarding, we can go dirt biking, we can go skydiving, we can go talk about these restaurants. But you know what I'm saying? You can go get more ink. You can go do it's so funny what people are drawn to besides training. Training's a part of it. But be interesting outside of that. Interesting outside of that. Like the amount of conversations I have about my tattoos, the amount of conversations I have about me snowboarding, the amount of conversations I have about me doing a lot of other things outside of work, because that's what it consists of. And if you're a coach, you need to have hobbies outside of that. I love to shoot guns. Let's go shoot guns. I'm going to tell you all about guns. I'm going to tell you what guns I shoot. I'm going to tell you about all this stuff. Let's go do that stuff, right? And that's what your clients are interested in. That's why they come to you, not because you write the best 3x3 program. Like, cool. So does everybody else.
Exactly, right. And like you said, it's how many clients can we honestly say that have asked us, what does this program mean?
Yeah.
Or what does this number mean? Like, let's be realistic about it. If you were to line up 10 coaches and ask them, when's the last time an athlete came to you and asked for this number, right? Unless they're a performance athlete and that's their livelihood, the chances are not very many have asked you about that, right? It's like they don't care. It's like, but they are going to ask you, like you said, how was your weekend? What did you do? Right? It's like I've had clients come in off of Monday. How was your weekend? What did you do? The last thing I want to say is, I just sat there and read exercise science and exercise physiology. They're going to look at me and be like, that's
cool.
What you did all weekend, right? They're going to be like, cool, right? I'm not going to retain that client very long and an athlete very long if every single time they come in, that's what they're talking about. So this is why I say online, when I'm talking to coaches and they're shouting at each other, I'm like, the only people you guys are impressing is each other. I'm like, because your clients aren't paying attention to this. I'm like, they're not paying attention to what you guys are arguing about online. I'm like, they could care less about what you guys are arguing about. Oh, my guy ran this and they jumped that. It's like your clients and your ideal client is probably even following you. I'm like, your ideal client probably isn't even your following list. It's a bunch of coaches and other people that you know who are following you, right? And not self-help. There's a difference between consumers, people who are consuming your content, and customers. Like, your customers are not the people that are on your content page and that are watching you yell at coaches on Twitter. I'm like, that's not your customer. I'm like, that's
don't mean to cut you off, but it's the classic saying that likes isn't cash. You know what I'm saying? And I can get likes from coaches. That's fantastic. They're not paying me.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
They're not paying me.
Exactly. Right? They're not paying me. If they do, they want a free ebook. They're like, can I hop on a call with you? Can I pick your brain? Right? They want, like, you know what I mean? They're willing to do that. It's like, I'll hop on a call and pick your brain. But you tell them, it's like, yo, here's my rate. And they're like, They're like, yeah, I can go look up another coach and get this information for free.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, what are you doing it for then? Right? It's like you're sitting there yelling at coaches and doing all that when they really don't care. Right? And so that's why when I mentor a lot of younger coaches now, when I'm mentoring a lot of them, I'm telling them, I say, okay, what is your core group? Right? And a lot of coaches always ask me, they talk to me like, what do I do to grow my business? I said, number one, focus on who you have now. That's number one. Focus on the people that you have now. Do they like you? Do they enjoy you?
Yeah.
You keep them happy. Now, what do you do well? Okay, what is it that you do very well? Is it that you work with a certain type of athlete? Is it tactical? Is it golf? Is it skating? Whatever it is, that's your athlete that you work with. Cool. Okay, you market yourself towards that. Now, from that point, you've got to expand and say, okay, what is my next avenue from there? Who else do I want to enjoy working with? Because again, you're either going to niche down and only work with a certain type of person, or you're going to work with a wide range, right? And so I tell coaches all the time, it's like, I could program for any athlete, any client. I'm like, I've coached everything from skiers, snowboarders, pickleballers, tennis players, CrossFit athletes. I'm like, at the end of the day, when you understand basic exercise physiology like we all do, to a certain extent, a high level, you can program for anybody. It's not much difference when you're writing one program for one person versus writing it for the next person. Let's stop arguing and make it seem like there's vast differences when we're writing programming. Like, let's stop this whole thing to make it seem like it's super complex between sport to sport and everything is like crazy different. I'm like, dude, you can literally switch out certain things and let's not do that, right?
It's being a generalist, right? Like training is general. Training is general, right?
Yeah.
Now, I will say I definitely hate and I disagree with people that are like, anybody can write a program. Well, anybody – correct.
No, they can't.
Anybody can put shit on paper, right? Anybody can do that. But if you want a legitimate program that has thought process, that is scientifically backed, that has, an actual qualified individual do that, not anybody can do that, right? And correct, that's coaching.
That's coaching.
Trainers, personal trainers can just throw shit on a paper and say, do 3x8 for everything, do 3x10 for everything, right? And that's where I think the distinction, we struggle a lot because a lot of times we get grouped into that, like, well, anybody can do that. It's like, no, definitely not, right? Yes, it's general, right? Like a squat pattern, I don't care if it's a goblet squat, a front squat, a safety bar squat, a back squat, whatever, is a squat pattern. Agreed. However, having the thought process behind how we can get you from here to there and everything from that standpoint, that's going to take a professional and that's going to cost you money, like good money, not here's $25 a month. Like, no, that's not how that works at all. But we get grouped into that. We get grouped into that a lot.
Right.
But,
absolutely. But what separates us is what we talked about, right? Is the relationship building, right? That's what separates you and has clients trusting you as a professional is the relationship side of it, right? Is, okay, I understand that you do more than just write me a program, right? Is I'm paying you for everything that goes inside of that program. I'm paying you to ask me how my day was, to sit there and talk to me, to reach out to me, to be a friend. That's what they're going to pay you the big bucks for, right? So that's why I said when it went time for me to transition from going from Division II, going now to the private sector, opening up the big 15,000 square foot facility, yes, I got results, but it was the
Mm,
relationship building that maintained my ability to hold on to clients and for them to pay me
yeah.
the big amount of money. So it's like they come to me and they know, right? And this is where, again, lean into you being a former athlete, right? Nothing wrong with
Correct.
you
Correct.
initially leaning into that and say, hey, I played X amount. I did that initially. Perfectly
Yeah,
fine for you
because
to
it gets you
initially do
respect and
that.
credibility right away.
But
Right. Right.
exactly,
Right.
right? It gets you
Right.
respect and credibility right away. But after that starts to wear off, which it does fast, once that's done, what are you keeping a client
Mm,
with around now? It
mm,
can't be just your programming. It can't be just your programming that's going to keep clients around because now with AI coming out, okay, clients are going to be like, I can go download this app and I can get
sure.
AI to write me a program. It's the
Sure.
coaching part, like you said, it's the coaching and relationship part that's going to keep
Yeah.
them long term. Because again, the internet has made it easy. I tell people all the time when people reach out to me, they're like, oh, I want a free program. I'm like, well, you can go to
Yeah.
Google and get a free program. I'm like, but there's
Yeah.
something else that you're missing that's not free, that's
Yeah.
not getting you to where you want to be. So now I said it goes back to the alignment part, right? What are you truly seeking that's not
Mm,
allowing you to hit your goal?
mm,
It's not a program because you can literally go to Google, YouTube, whatever it was, TikTok,
mm,
and download a program. There's something missing, whether it's emotionally or psychologically or accountability that's missing to
mm,
get you to where you want to be, right? But again, unless you ask those questions, you won't keep clients around and you won't be able to retain them for long, right? And so that's why you said it's the professional side. And I love the line you said about being an educator. The greatest compliment that I've gotten as a coach is from clients that I have
mm.
who are teachers and professors. And they tell me, they say, you
Yeah.
explain things like a teacher. You explain things and you teach me things. To me, that's the highest honor that any coach can ever get from an athlete or from a client to say,
Mm,
you're a great teacher. Like you help teach me things, right? And so when I hear that, I'm like, I'm
mm.
doing something correct. When somebody tells me, it's like, you should go into teaching, it's like, you might not make much money, but you should be a teacher because you're so good at explaining the
Yeah.
details behind things. And that's again, like you said,
Mm,
that's the professionalism side that buys them into long term, right? But again, it goes with you
mm-hmm.
evolving also as a coach. You have to also evolve as a coach where, like you said, training is no longer your end all be all anymore. You should still train. Like I told the other day, I
Yeah.
sparked a conversation yesterday, the other day. As a coach, you still need to be
Right.
doing some type of training to understand what your athletes and what your clients are going through. And again, that's why they trust influencers over older coaches because
Yeah.
the influencer is working out. The influencer is posting their workouts. The influencer is getting their attention. They go to your page and they're seeing a bunch of infographics and they're like, I don't see anything. And then they look at you and they're like,
Yeah.
Coach, when's the last time you worked out? And you're like, I kind of every
Yeah.
now and then they're like, well, yeah, I'm not trusting you as much anymore because your physique. And I'm not saying like you said coaches need to be ripped and jacked, but you at least need to still be training because it keeps your clients with buy-in, right? Everything else is keeping
Yeah.
buy-in, not your
Well,
programming.
it's
It's
like
everything else.
it's you never trust a skinny chef, right? Like and
Yeah, right.
right? Like, hey, you see the chef and you're like, yo, you're a big man, but you know how to cook, don't you? And he's like, man, I can barbecue some stuff. You're like, all right, let me get some of that, right? Like, yeah,
Right.
it's not that coaches, um, it's not that coaches need to be the most jacked. Does that help? Absolutely. 100%. It does help. But what hurts you is when you can't see your toes, right? What hurts you is when you can't show a basic exercise or movement, right? What hurts you is when
Bingo.
you don't know how to shoot a free throw or shoot a basketball or throw a baseball
Yeah.
or throw a football or swing a baseball bat, right? That's what hurts you. You know what creates so much buy-in? Go to practice and play with them for 10 minutes. Seriously. Hey, I'm gonna play with
Yes.
y'all for today. What you got? What we running? Oh, threes? I bet. I got you. Right? Like that creates so much buy-in. I don't care what anybody says.
Yep.
That creates so much buy-in. Talk crap. I do it all the time. Make fun of yourself. Like you said, find the new trending this is a controversial one, but find the new trending dance, learn it, right? Bro, if you come in and you know how to gritty, right? Right? I'm serious, man. If you come in and you know how to gritty, right.
Not controversial. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
that shouldn't be controversial of you going in there and having fun with your athletes. Like, fun.
I'm not saying go out, be on TikTok and do dances. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is like, hey, if this is a popular thing and you're starting to see professional athletes do that, and you're working with youth, high school, collegiate athletes, or even Gen Pop, you should probably catch on to that and be like, how do I gritty? And then have them teach you. Have them teach you. That's a huge one too. Yeah, have them teach you.
Right. And I think at the end of it, and this is the part you said, right, and this is what I said, is learning from social media, learning from other things, right? And this is something that I learned from a lot of my younger athletes, is coaching when I was coaching the Full Performance Club girls, is they want to be attached, and we hate to say this, and I got friends who are in marketing, I have friends who work in the entertainment industry and all that kind of stuff. People want to be attached to something that's cool, or what they perceive as cool. Why do people like going to Equinox? Because it's perceived as cool. I go to Equinox. It's status. Equinox is cool. It's a status symbol, right? You want to be attached to a specific team because they're cool. Why do people root for certain baseball teams, football teams, whatever? There's a status attached to it. If you as a coach take care of yourself and you look good and you talk well and all this kind of stuff, there's a perceived cool factor next to you. If you're somebody who goes to eat all the time, the coach is like, dude, my coach goes to this place. My coach got the latest J's on, this and that. It's like, there's a cool factor attached to you. So now for the younger kids, there's a coolness that they want to be around you. So many coaches, again, miss the forest through the trees because they only see what's on paper and programming. It's like, your athletes want to brag about you. Your athletes want to brag about you and be like, look what my coach did. Or look how ripped my coach is. Like, I can't tell how many times athletes come and be like, look at this personal trainer and look at this coach. Like, look what they're doing, right? There's a cool factor attached to it. It's like you said, you don't have to be jacked, but if you're in shape, your athletes are going to show it off. Like, dude, look at my coach. My coach is like in shape, right? So that's what I mean when I say coaches don't understand that side of it, because again, we're too controlled. We're trying to impress other coaches instead of focusing on what really matters, and it's the athlete and client in front of us and doing what makes them happy, not what makes us happy. It's like, get out of your own way, remove your ego, and figure out where can we find common ground together to say, you like this, I need you to do that. And we're going to find some way to mesh that. They're going to create buy-in. Why? Because they like you. If I like you, I'm more likely to listen to you, right? It's like, if I kind of like you and I kind of like being around you, chances of me listening to you higher than
now. I I mean, look at what Deion Sanders is doing right now, right? And if you guys want to see this, in today's day and age, what a coolness looks like, where it's like, that boy don't miss. Look at what Deion Sanders is doing right now. Look at what he did at JSU. Look at what he's doing at Colorado. Does that mean you need to be primetime? No, that's not what I'm saying. But his players associate his swag. They associate, like, man, he's got them J's on. He's out there walking with chains on. He's biking. Like, man, he's making riding a bike look cool again. You know what I'm saying? But, like, for real. Like, and so, you know, I'm not saying that you need to compromise who you are, because I'm not saying that at all. Always be yourself. Always be authentic.
No, not at all.
Always be you. If you're a hard ass, be a hard ass, man. I respect that, right? There's a certain component of, like, I'm not there to be your friend, but I'm going to be cool. You know what I'm saying? When we go travel, I'm going to have J's on, right? I'm going to have J's on. I'm going to look good because guess what? The cameras are coming out and you're not going to catch me looking bad. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, yo. Like, that's for real. You know what I mean? And just real talk. Like, I draw that line with clients. Like,
bingo.
When it's time to work, it's time to work, right? It's like, when we're here training, it's time to work, it's time to work. When we're done off the clock, we can be friends and go hang out. We can do all that kind of stuff, right? It's like they appreciate that. They appreciate the fact that you're not, as soon as the clock is
Correct.
over with, oh, I can't talk to you anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I go and talk to you during the training session. They want to be able to have conversations with you off the clock. Like you said, it's not compromising yourself and
Right.
being something that
Right.
you're not. But Deion, like you talked about, is a perfect example. I guarantee you, we're going to see so many other
Mhm.
coaches and universities try to take the blueprint of what
Yep.
he's doing through social media and now hire social media teams, start to video their kids. You're going to start to see so many things come from
Yeah.
what Deion
Yeah.
has said.
Yeah, it's already
right
there
now.
too, right? Like, I mean, if you see what's going on at some of these other universities that are hiring or that are building, straight up media centers where athletes can have podcasts, and they all use it. Athletes can have, this is where they do their NIL stuff. This is where they do their media. Like, it's so sick. It's legit. It's super dope. But if you're a coach, what we're saying, if you're a coach, see that, understand that, and start to do that, right? Because your athlete, I'll tell you, when I video my athletes, they love it. They love it. When I take photos of them, they love it, right? Like, they absolutely love that stuff because when I was playing, probably just like when you were playing, I wish I had more memories, photos, videos of that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I wish I had more of that, right? I don't, but I wish I did.
Same. I can't find anything now. I was like, I tried to look it up. I'm like, dude, I went and found my old college highlight reel. I'm like, it's so grainy.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
I went and found a photo of me
man.
lifting when I was in college. Man, I had like a super thick neck. It was so crazy. I thought I was so big. I thought I was so big and so strong. And I was like 205. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
bro. You know what I mean? It's like I said, you wish, and that's like you said, we talked about that the other day, is be the athlete or the coach that you wish you would have had as an athlete. You know what I mean? When I tell coaches that, I'm like, be that person. Like you said, when I said working arms, you were once a teenager.
Yeah.
You were once a high school kid. What did you like to do? Now bridge the gap. I'm like, don't forget about when you were a kid, man. I'm like, we were all there. Don't let that kid and that fun inside of you die because some older coach online felt like you have to be this way. You can't do that. It's like, don't do that. Like you said, it's like these kids now, man, they want to have fun. They want to gritty with you. They want to dance. They want to do that. It's like I have videos on my phone from my kids of us. They bake me cakes and we're laughing about it, all that kind of stuff. They'll bring me birthday cakes and all that. Like, they're having fun. I'm like, they'll remember that forever. They're not going to remember the time we said a PR on back squat. They're like, Coach, remember the time that we brought you a cake? And this and that? It's like, oh, yeah. That's what they're going to remember, right? So like you said, it's like, if anything for coaches, you guys, find balance. It's like, get work done, but also don't forget to be human at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. What I like to do is I like to people might take this the wrong way, but it's not meant that way. I like to make bets with my athletes, like on football games, right? So and here's the bet for everybody is I'll bring a T-shirt. No, dude, because people will be like, you're gambling. No, we're not gambling. No, I bring a T-shirt in for them. All right. So it's like, this was funny. When because I used to work at TCU. When TCU, I did an internship there or whatever, but when TCU played Texas in football this year, one of my athletes is from Austin, Texas. Great dude. He loves Texas. I said, hey, man, TCU wins, you got to wear a TCU shirt throughout the entire lift. If Texas wins, I'll wear a Texas shirt, right? That's our bet. That's how I bet with my athletes. Something that they don't want to do. Like, that's enemy territory. That's enemy colors, man. I ain't wearing that, right? And, TCU ended up winning, so I brought him in a TCU shirt. So he had to say, go Frogs. We videoed it. He had to wear the shirt the entire, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I do with them. The whole team loved it, man. They were making fun of him. And but it's like, yes, like that's the betting I do for anybody like in compliance. That's the betting I do. I bring a T-shirt in for them to wear that they don't want to wear. It's ugly colors. It's all that type of stuff, right? And makes it fun. And then we can poke fun at each other, right? And if I lose, I'll do the same thing. You can poke fun at me, but you gotta just have that personal component. Like, again, like we said, like you're with one of the boys or you're with one of the girls or you're with one, like we would do that. You know what I'm saying? Like my friends, heck yeah, I'm doing that with my friends 100%, you know?
like you just talked about, right?
Yes.
It's the fun component aspect of it. And we talked about culture, right?
Yeah.
You hear this word thrown around all the time, and coaches talking about culture. I want to build a culture. What culture are you building if the foundation of it is built on relationships, right? It's like you're building a foundation on what? It's like, why do, and this is a quote that I do, this stuck with me, and I forget to look this up. This stuck with me years ago, right? When I was first transitioning from into the sector. I was at the NSCA strength and conditioning coaches association that they always do, right? It was out here. One of my old college teammates is the head of the NSCA West Coast chapter. So they brought the 49ers head strength and conditioning coach at the time. I think this was 2010 or 2015. I forgot who it was. And so a bunch of coaches were interviewing him, asking him questions, right? And so one strength coach, a female strength coach, asked him, she goes, "Hey, I want your job." She goes, "What do I do to get to your job?" And he asked her, he goes, "Do you really want to get to my job?" Right? And I knew his answer already. Me and him were friends at the time. She's like, "I really want your job." And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to tell you about my job." He goes, "I love working on athletes. I love working with the Niners." And I think this is when they had just hired Kyle Shanahan and brought them all in, right? And they were off a losing season. He goes, "If we lose next year, they're going to fire me.
Yeah.
They're going to fire the whole staff. I'm going to have to relocate and I'm going to have to go somewhere else." He goes, "I've already moved my family 4 times." He goes, "I came from the private sector. They brought me up here as a strength and conditioning coach." He goes, "Here's my advice for all of you guys. If you're somewhere you're happy, your athletes are happy, you're getting paid a good wage, you're cool with your boss, stay there." He goes, "What do? You build up your reputation for getting results and being a good coach, and people will find you." He goes, "You build your network." He said, "You build your network and athletes and coaches will find you. It's not about the name on your shirt as people are going to come and see you." He goes, "People come for relationships," like we've been saying. He goes, "When athletes go into off season, we know where they're going in off season." He goes, "We've built relationships." When I was at Exos, why do you think Exos gets guys back every single year?
Yeah.
They trust Exos. It's like, they get results, but players also love going to Exos because other players are there. It's a good relationship. It's a good facility. They could probably go to a bunch of different facilities, but they go back to Exos because not only do they get results, but they love the place and the people.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And so it's like, you don't have to worry about jumping from place to place. Stay where you're at, build up your reputation, wherever that may be, and you'll get people coming to you. That's how you build a culture. That's what culture's about. It's not built on your program, and it's like the players and the people are going to come back because they're like, "Dude, I like going to hang out with Kendrick. Like, I like going to hang out with Coach Pratt because he's super cool." It's like, we get results and we hard work, but it's a dope vibe to be around him the whole time.
Yeah.
That's why they're going to come back. You know what I mean? So it's like for coaches, it's like your athletes are going to come back to you because they like you. It's like, I got a bunch of my athletes who are done playing. They come back and see me because they love hanging around me and chopping up with me. I'm like, bro, they're done playing with their careers. They come back and they hang out with me now.
Yes.
It's like we're friends. It's like they don't play anymore. It's like we're friends now. Their career's over with. But they come to hang out with me because they enjoy being around me.
Yeah, man. You're spot on. I mean, just there's no other way to put it. You're spot on. That's exactly what it is. And it's I think one thing that we don't do in the moment enough is appreciate people, and we don't appreciate, and I'll tell you what, it's tough though, right? When there's millions of dollars on the line, hundreds of $1 million on the line, people trying to get paid, people trying to do this. Like, I get it, right? Cause I live that life. I get it. I live that life. I do. And it's tough, right? And then you come in and saying, "Hey coach, we're going to have fun." They're like, "What are you going to do?" Like we're going to have fun. You know what I'm saying? But it's so funny because, and this is kind of like my last point, but when I was playing, the best games I played is when I was the loosest, I was the goofiest, I was just out there flowing and vibing and just having a good time and just doing that component of things. The games that I played the worst in is when I was tight, You
were tight.
I was tight. I was like, don't mess up. Oh, you don't miss reading a cue again. You know what I'm saying? But when the games that I walked in, I'm like, I don't give a flying F, man. Man, just turn the music up and let's go. Like, that's when I played the best, right? And it's the same way though. I'm not saying don't care, but what I'm saying is like, have a good time. Like, you know what the first one in fundamentals is? Fun. You know,
Fun.
like, come on, man. It's crazy, but there's so many, I don't know. Everybody's different, but we need to appreciate people more in the moment. And we really struggle with that.
Absolutely. And my last point is to bring it up is at the end of the day, like I said, in terms of growing a business, right? Is growing a business starts with three key things. I'm gonna tell all coaches 3 key things. Number 1, alignment, right? Align yourself with what your goal ultimately is. Think about it from this perspective. How much money do I want to make? Okay. It may not be 250,000. It may not be 300K. How much money do you feel like you need in order to be happy and be fulfilled? Don't go trying to make as much money as somebody else says you need to make. How much money do you need to make? How many hours do you need to work and now balance, have work-life harmony, right? As you talked about it, is a lot of coaches struggle with work-life balance. It's not work-life balance. It's work-life harmony. How does what I'm doing inside the gym and training help me outside of the gym? And now that carries over to your clients. What am I doing inside of the gym that's going to help outside of the gym, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, relationships. Establish those relationships with coaches that you know, but also with your clients. They're going to be the backbone of your business. It's like build those relationships with them. And then the third point is now you mesh those two and say, okay, how can I grow and scale this up from there? That's when you start to grow the business side. But you have to build your foundation first before you try to sell a business. It's like, you're not selling it on anything. You have a shaky foundation. Start by building an alignment and building your relationships. And now the business becomes easy because you're like, oh, I see who my ideal client is. I see what type of person likes to be around me. I can grow this from here because I know everything that's on step 1 and 2 leads me to 3. And now I just take off from there.
We didn't even talk on the business side that much. We didn't even talk about growing, scaling. How do I get my first client? Should I use online? Like, so we'll probably have to do that on another one. Yeah.
We'll
because I think,
seriously,
I think you have a lot to offer from that standpoint. And I know we kind of touched on a lot of other things today, but JD, man, I want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate your time today. I appreciate the stuff that you put out consistently, how you challenge the norm, but understand it too, you know, and everything that you're consistently doing. And I want to thank you. Thank you for your time because it's really special and it's awesome to have somebody, you know, if you guys didn't catch this, the amount of people that he listed that he played against, connected to, and that are his clients, pretty top-notch guy. And so that's amazing. Continue doing what you're doing, man. I feel like we could talk for another 2 hours on this. And so we'll probably come back on again. But I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for your time, man. It was great.
Man, thank you for having me, bro. And I'm always down. And I thank you for sharing this platform, right? I thank you for having this platform for coaches to talk, you know what I mean? And to bridge that gap between, you know, what our personal experiences are and just helping other coaches become better, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, everything that I share and do is not for me. It's not for my ego. It's to help other coaches. You know, I tell all coaches all the time, my DMs are always open. I'm always open to chat and talk because I'm not about trying to make a whole bunch of money off of coaches. I'm trying to help us raise the standard in this industry and help coaches live a more fulfilled life at the end of the day.
That's awesome, man. And that's a great goal. That's a great alignment for what you're trying to do and where, you know, all of that comes to you. And I think that's a huge component of it. So guys, if you're still listening, if you're still watching, if you're watching on YouTube, like we said before at the beginning of the show, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, drop a comment below. Definitely helps us out. If you're listening to Spotify, leave a review. It literally takes 10 seconds of your life. And then if you got something from this episode, if you got encouraged, if you got entertained, do us a huge favor, share with a friend. I'm sure you laughed just like we laughed. I'm sure that you were like, I agree with that point. Do us a favor, share with a friend, because that's the only way the show grows. So, guys, thank you so much for continuing to be here. JD, thank you. Can't wait to continue to have more conversations with you. both on this platform and off and other platforms. Thank you. And guys, we'll catch you guys in the next one.